All right. Welcome back to Stewardship-Minded, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, so the past couple of weeks have been an introduction to stewardship, and last week I'd mentioned that money is the most visible aspect of stewardship. So in order to explore the financial aspect of stewardship, we first have to ask the question, what is money? So let me pull up a definition for you, and this is from dictionary.com. There's three aspects to money. First is actual physical coins, dollar bills, euros, the physical money you can hold in your hand, cash. The second kind of money is just currency. Like I said, dollars, euros, pesos, whatever kind of currency a country uses. That's an aspect of money. And then there's the overarching general aspect of money, the definition of which is any article or substance used as a medium of exchange, measure of wealth, or means of payment. And this could be anything. Anything that you use to pay for goods or services. For instance, in the Bible, Genesis 13:2, Abraham it says Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. So they have two different kinds of money. You have what we would consider to be traditional forms of money, gold and silver, as well as livestock. In those patriarch days of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Job, livestock was considered a form of wealth. You were considered wealthy if you had a large number of livestock. Let me pull up, and speaking of Job, let me pull up the first chapter of Job. There was a man in the country of Uz named Job. He was a man of complete integrity who feared God and turned away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And here's the key verse. His estate included 7,000 sheep and goats, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large number of servants. Job was the greatest man of all the people of the East. So that right there, it didn't mention any other aspect of money other than livestock. There we see livestock was a form of money. It was a measure of wealth. Excuse me. Just as a point of clarification, y'all see me coughing a bit. I do have a touch of asthma, so that just lets y'all know why I cough on occasion. So I don't know if anybody's ever heard the name Howard Dayton. He founded Crown Financial Ministries in the early '70s. He took a look at the Bible just to see how many different verses there were on money and finances. And guess how many he managed to count up? 2,350. As a way of comparison, he counted up approximately 500 on faith and prayer combined. So he said that, or he found that money and possessions was the number one topic mentioned in the Bible. Why? Because Christ himself said, where your treasures are, there your heart is. What you put your money towards that's where your heart is. Or how much money you have, that's where your heart is. You know. So, we all know the famous verse, 1 Timothy 6:10. Let me pull it up just to make sure I don't misquote it. 1 Timothy 6:10. The classic verse is, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, and by craving it, some have wandered away from the faith and placed them and pierced themselves with many griefs." Now, there are some Christians who believe that wealth and money is evil in and of itself, and that's just flat out wrong. The Bible there clearly says it is the love of money. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And by craving it, some have wandered away from the faith. It is not wealth and money itself that is the problem. It's what we do with it. It is what we desire of it. How much we desire it. That's the issue. In the book of Acts, let me see if I can find it. Paul, or the writer of Acts, Luke, makes mention of Lydia, who was a very wealthy seller of purple dyes and purple dyed fabrics. She was considered quite a godly woman because she opened up her house to Paul and other members of the early church as a way of refreshing them, as a way of encouraging. Acts 16:40 says, after leaving the jail, they, Paul and Silas, after leaving the jail, Paul and Silas, came to Lydia's house, where they saw and encouraged their brothers and sisters and departed. So we see Lydia using her wealth to help further the kingdom. As we saw in the Old Testament, Job and Abram, very wealthy individuals, they were considered very godly men, and they were very wealthy. Excuse me. Money isn't just, as I said, currency, cash. It's anything that can be used for paying for goods or services. If you have somebody to fix your furnace or whatever, and you don't have any cash, but you see that the worker is in need of a good jacket, and you happen to have one, and you agree to swap that good jacket for working on the furnace. If you all agreed to that, that's money. You use that jacket as money. That's a system of barter. If you feed somebody for providing a good or service, that's a form of money, because that person no longer has to go buy that jacket or feed himself. He can spend his money on something else that he needs. He doesn't have to spend it on that jacket or that money. And we've always heard the statement, time is money. Excuse me. When we spend time doing a good job, we're trading that time for our salary. I currently work on a bridge. I'm trading my time operating this bridge for the money given to me in payment. If I worked on, if I made a pizza, I'm trading my time and the ingredients of that pizza for the money paid to me. Time is money. Having said that, we can't exactly tithe that time to the church. We can, we can serve the church in time-related activities like Sunday school, as deacons, and church supper ministries, that kind of thing. But our church, our leaders of that church, like our pastors, they can't eat time. They still need actual physical cash to eat with, so that they can go buy food. So, obviously they can eat food that you would give them, but a church needs actual money, actual physical cash to be able to, pay their bills, pay their pastor, pay their light bills, pay their mortgage. We can serve, but we can't necessarily pay our tithe with time. So why is it important that the idea of money be discussed? As I just mentioned, we have to know how we can serve through time, through cash, through whatever. Nothing that, as I've said in previous episodes, nothing that we have is ours. Let me pull back up the book of Proverbs. And I apologize for not having these verses pulled up already. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants, belong to the Lord, for He laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Money is God's. Possessions are God's. How we use those monies, how we use that money and those possessions for the glorification of God and the furthering of the kingdom is our evidence of how we see money and possessions. So thank y'all for tuning in. I'm probably going to remember some other important point I wanted to make after we've concluded. Anyway, I thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll see y'all next time. Oh, by the way, in coming weeks, I'll probably be transitioning to a Facebook page specifically for Stewardship-Minded instead of broadcasting from my own personal Facebook page. So y'all keep an eye out for that. Anyway, like I said, thank y'all for tuning in, and I will see y'all next time.